Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast presented by Go Boys. Coming up on the show, Matt Youmans of VSiN will join us. We'll break down the Masters, get ready for everything you need to know, how to bet it, who to bet. So looking forward to talking with Matt. He does a great job betting golf. So we'll maybe talk some NFL draft, some baseball with him. But before we get to that, got to put a little bow on the college basketball season, the college basketball final. UConn wins the championship, 12 straight wins in the tournament, back-to-back titles, 12 straight covers, just absolute complete dominance from start to finish. It's funny. Last year, the first game of the tournament was against Iona, and Hurley, it's funny to think of it now, Hurley had never won a game at UConn in the tournament. There was a little, I don't know, pressure, some whispers. Hey, is this the guy? Is he ever going to make a run in the tournament? They were actually losing at halftime in that first game to Iona, and they came back. They obviously won that game, won it convincingly. They've just destroyed everybody in their path ever since. So Iona's the one team that can look back and say, "Hey, we had this team at half with a lead." But other than that, they have destroyed everyone. Purdue early on, you thought maybe they're up for the fight. The first 5-10 minutes were good. They were fun. It was a little bit like a heavyweight fight back and forth. You thought maybe they were up for the task. And once it was 36-30 at the half, I think it was 23 all, which was the same score it was when UConn went on that crazy run against Illinois. Edie stopped scoring. Edie looked tired. And once UConn got up by 6 at half, you figured that was kind of it. They got up to 10. And once UConn's ahead of 10 by anyone, ahead by 10 against anyone, you're not catching UConn if they have a 10-point lead. They're just too much better than you. They're too much better than everyone. Purdue couldn't make a three. They couldn't get a three off. UConn had a clear game plan. It was a good game plan. It was just, hey, we'll do a decent enough job on Edie, but we're not going to double. We're not going to leave your shooters open. And to only attempt 7 3-pointers for Purdue, they were just drawing dead. The thing that surprised me the most, UConn 14 offensive rebounds. I thought Purdue, hey, good offensive or a good rebounding team just in general. UConn, maybe if they don't have a good shooting night, which they really didn't, 27% from three, maybe Purdue can clean up the glass and hang in this game. Not to be. UConn just much more athletic, 1 through 4. The fives, I don't want to say bounced out because Edie had 37 and 10 or whatever, and Klingon didn't have a big game. Newton wins the award in terms of the most outstanding player. Just complete dominance. Just complete dominance. Purdue, it was never really in the game. 5 minutes into the second half, you knew it was over. So it's been the same sort of script for all these UConn games where at some point in the second half, pretty early in the second half, UConn just pulls away. And when once they get a lead, they're just too good to let it go. And UConn didn't even play great. Again, 27% from three, got a little sloppy late, but they win, they get it done. Be interested to see what that team looks like next year. I don't know if they bring it back enough talent to actually threaten for a three-peat, but we will see. The other big story in college basketball, Kentucky is now looking for a coach as Calipari leaves for Arkansas late Sunday night, early Monday morning. That escalated quickly in the age where nothing's a secret anymore. We get more rumored things that don't happen than we ever get things that happen that we don't hear about prior. Calipari just out of nowhere decides, I'm going to go to Arkansas. Doesn't feel appreciated anymore. Fresh start for me. Fresh start for Kentucky. I get it from his perspective. Hey, he's got plenty of money. He can win at Arkansas. Feels like, hey, I don't want to go next year where people, just micromanaging, being under the microscope of, hey, I haven't won in a while. Probably feels like, he's brought enough to Kentucky in terms of the talent, a championship, a few Final Fours. He's like, I don't need this at this point in my life. I'll go somewhere where they appreciate me. Now, Arkansas, they've been to a couple Elite Eights recently, but that really hasn't been their program. A couple of its upsets. They got a 15-seed Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16, so that was a break for them. They beat Gonzaga that one year in, was it 2022, March of 2022, to get to an Elite Eight where they eventually lost to Duke. So it's not like they've been a consistent top 10 program. So it's a good balance of a place you can win, but a place they'll appreciate. And look, Calipari, he's going to bring talent anywhere. He's going to put basically a top 5 or 10 team on the floor with his ability to recruit anywhere he goes. We've seen it in UMass, Memphis, wherever he goes, he's going to win in college. Now, is he going to win it all? Who knows? I mean, he'll bring in enough talent to win. Whether he can actually do it or not, we'll see. But interesting move, surprising move. I don't know where Kentucky goes for a coach. My guess is Scott Drew, the Baylor coach. There's really not that home run hire of, hey, you got to check 2 boxes when you're hiring a Kentucky coach. You want somebody who's accomplished, but you want somebody, I think Kentucky wants somebody who's going to be there for the next 10 or 15 years and be the next Calipari. Say what you want about him. He did win a title. He did have a decent run there, even though it didn't end well. I've heard people bring up Pitino, Jay Wright. I just think those guys are too old. Those guys will be there for 3 or 4 years. And then you're going to have to find your next guy. I don't see them going that route. I think, again, there's not that perfect guy, but Drew's the best balance of, hey, he's won a title and he's young enough where he can be there a while. Does that absolutely knock your socks off if you're a Kentucky fan where, hey, let's plan the parade now, we're getting Scott Drew? It does not. It's not like a lock home run hire. So I don't know. Maybe they go Billy Donovan. Maybe they go Scott Drew. There's not that grand slam home run guy to replace Calipari, which is probably why they didn't fire Calipari after losing to Oakland when people was like, all right, it's run its course, which you could say it had. But the next step is, okay, who do you replace him with? And there wasn't that great answer out there. And I don't know that there's still that great answer. So keep an eye on that. Calipari to Arkansas, UConn, the national champs, as college basketball ends its season. But when we come back, we will talk some Masters. We'll talk a little NFL draft, maybe some baseball with Matt Youmans of VSiN. That is next. This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. You can hear him on VSiN weeknights, 11 o'clock Eastern. He is the king of fast food rankings. It is the great Matt Youmans, and he joins us now. Matt, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Great might be an overstatement, but hey, man, it's great to be on with you today, and let's talk some NFL and Masters.
Yeah, let's get right into it with the Masters. When you're handicapping this tournament, this course, what are some of the characteristics you look for? Where do you start here when you're handicapping this tournament?
You start with course history, and obviously the Masters, when you're looking at a horse for the course type of handicapping, this is the Exhibit A. And what's most important and what you should emphasize is how these guys have played on this course in the past. I think that's no secret. Anybody who handicaps the Masters knows that the players and their track record at Augusta is paramount of importance, and that's basically what I'm looking at the most. Sometimes I feel like you can even throw out current form for some of these players if they're slumping a little bit coming in, but they've had a great history, a really strong history on this course. I can overlook some of the. I think that might supersede some of the current form. I looked at a lot of stats when I was handicapping this today, but I don't emphasize that nearly as much as I do as how these guys have played on this course in the past.
Anyone you're looking at? Anyone you bet? Who are the few
Oh,
guys?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brooks Koepka is one guy I'm going to play here, and I bet him tonight at 22-1 at Circa. He was a 54-hole leader last year in this event. I know you recall that. And he's a five-time major champion. He ended up tied for second, or finished second last year at Augusta. Koepka was 8 under, finished 4 strokes. He tied with Phil for second, actually, 4 strokes back at John Rahm. But like I said, led this going into Sunday. And Koepka's a big game player. I feel like even though he's, and that's what I'm talking about with current form, his form is not very impressive coming in right now. But he's the type of player who can flip the switch. And he's got such a strong history at Augusta. I feel like he's going to be a contender. He's a big game hunter. He shows up for the Masters, and I've read a lot of his comments this week and how he's talking about this. And I think you're going to get Brooks Koepka's A game. So I bet him to win at 22-1. Played some of the placement markets on these guys as well. Koepka top 10 at plus 175. So that's one player I feel really good about. Jordan Spieth is always a roller coaster ride. And sometimes on a bet Spieth, I hate myself for it when I watch him because he drives you crazy when he's so fidgety on the course and such a whiner sometimes. But he won here in 2015. He's got 2 seconds. He's got 6 top 5s and 10 starts at Augusta, tied for 4th last year with a strong 4th round. Spieth was actually 6 under in the 4th round last year to go 7 under for the tournament. He is so creative around the greens where you've got to be good at Augusta that I give him a decent shot. Now, I don't love Spieth at 25-1, even though I did bet it. I did play him top 10 at plus 200. Took a longer shot on Tony Finau, tied for second in the Houston Open a couple weeks ago, and I thought that was a positive sign for him. He's got 3 top 10s at Augusta. Finau in the top 20 is plus 140, and I got him at 55-1 to win the tournament. It's hard to envision Finau closing the deal on Sunday, but I think he can be in the hunt enough that he's worth a play there. Well, when you look at Scotty Scheffler at 9-2 or 5-1 at the top of the odds board, I think you got to look beyond that a little bit and try to find some value, and that might give you some value with some of these other guys near the top. How about Cameron Smith? Not playing especially well coming into the Masters, but 3 top 5 finishes at Augusta in the last 6. And I found a matchup that I like him in this week, and those are some of the plays I got in pocket right now. I can say that Indy Jeff Seeley was on our show last night on VSiN. He made a great case for Phil Mickelson in a head-to-head matchup against Tiger. And Phil out there, right, I think minus 115 at BetMGM makes some sense. Mickelson 8 under last year, tied for second. And you got to wonder if Tiger is going to hold up physically and even make it to the weekend. Jeff said he's skeptical that Tiger's even going to finish, the first 2 rounds. I've read that his ankle's really bothering him. Is he going to have trouble walking the course? He has not been playing competitive golf, even though he knows Augusta like his backyard. I think it's crazy to bet Tiger to win. I think it's unfortunate that people are betting him on the futures board to win this tournament. I think he's 50-50 at best to make the cut. I noticed the prop on Tiger to make the cut has moved to no minus 130 at the Westgate Superbook. But I do like Mickelson in that matchup against Tiger. And I did bet Scheffler minus 170 in a matchup against Rory, who does not play especially well at Augusta. And I looked for a way to play Scheffler, and that was the best way I could find this week.
Would the minus 150 or so? It's moved at DraftKings. It's the only book I looked at, but I could shop around. Is that worth it to play Tiger to miss the cut? Would you lay the juice?
150?
I'm looking at
Well,
150 at DraftKings. I mean, you said 130 at Westgate. Either one of those. Let's call 130. You can shop around the best number. Is that a good bet?
I don't know. I haven't played it yet. Like I said, I played Phil in that matchup after Jeff talked about it. He made such a good case for it. I I think it's a decent bet. 2 days ago, I saw Tiger to miss the cut at minus 110. I feel like you don't want to be taking the worst of it. I think
Right.
minus 130 might be the highest price I would lay there, just because he's got such a positive track record at Augusta. I'm a little
Eh,
bit hesitant to bet, too much against him to miss the cut. I think sometimes Tiger will go to Augusta with his goal to be to make the cut for the weekend to be somewhat competitive. I don't think he believes he's got a shot to win, but could he make the cut and play well? Well, 90 players in this field, and 20 of them basically have no chance, right? So he doesn't have to play great golf to make the cut after 2 days.
Anybody else at the top of the board that you just have no interest in, whether it's the favorites like you mentioned, Scheffler, Rory, Rahm, Schauffele, Koepka, Matsuyama, Spieth, Neiman, DeChambeau. Anybody else where you just say, hey, cross them off. I can't bet him at this number.
Uh, it's interesting. Joaquin Neiman's a player I've liked, but I'm not going to bet him in this tournament. And he's kind of a trendy pick right now, and his odds have changed dramatically. He's 30 to 1 is about the best you can find on Neiman, but I'm not going to play him. He's got 0 top 10 finishes and 19 major starts. Patrick Cantlay, another guy who's going to be popular because his odds drifted up around 40 to 1. Cantlay has 4 top 25s and 27 major starts. Another guy I really don't have interest in, Max Homa, 1 top 10 and 17 major starts. I went through some of these trying to find players I would eliminate, and I did not want to play this week. And Neiman, Cantlay, and Homa ended up being 3 of those guys because they have not performed in majors. Xander Schauffele is a guy I don't consider a closer. And Schauffele's stats are off the charts, and you look at him, you say, man, he should play well. I think he's going to be a popular pick for a lot of people this week. Our buddy Wes Reynolds is going to be on X this week. I don't think Schauffele can handle the pressure when he gets into contention on Sunday, so I'm not going to play him either.
How about somebody like Sergio Garcia?
No,
120 to 1. You said no?
no, I don't like Sergio at all. But I'll tell you what, his odds have drifted circa up to 175 to 1. Could you play Sergio to finish top 20? That's something I would look at. You see some of these big numbers on the odds board, and they're tempting on some of these players, like Brian Harman, right? Won the British Open last year. Didn't make a whole lot of sense that Brian Harman won the British Open after he missed the cut at Augusta. But lefties play well at Augusta. Brian Harman, a former Georgia Bulldog, you would think could be a pretty good bet this week. 64 to 1, somewhat tempting. I would say maybe instead of betting him to win, play him top 20, play him plus 115 in a matchup against Ricky Hatton, Terrell Hatton, not Ricky, Terrell Hatton, a guy who's not been competitive at Augusta National. So those are different ways I like to play guys like that. But no, I would. Is Sergio on your card?
No, just he caught my eye just because he's won before. He was when he
Yeah.
losing a playoff last week, so the recent form is there. I just came to mind at a long number.
Well, there's guys like Pat Reed who would make sense for some players, bettors. He tied for fourth last year, former winner on this course. You could actually bet Patrick Reed plus 105 in a matchup against Terrell Hatton. I think something like that. I don't like Fat Pat. That's not a guy I want to bet. But if you want to make a case for Reed or Garcia, I could understand people trying to make that case.
If it ended up being Ricky Hatton, that would be one of the all-time great stories. To go from
Yeah, that would be
boxing to
awesome.
win the Masters, that would be tremendous odds. Any other thoughts on this tournament? Are you? Let me ask you this: where are you with just the state of golf? Where it feels splintered. You rarely get all of the best players on the same course at the same time. Where are you at just in general with the health of the sport?
I don't like what's happening in golf right now. Echo a lot of the statements that the players have made. Some of the top players have said, "Hey, this is not good for the game. The TV ratings are down. Interest from fans in the sport of golf right now is down." And the same is true with me. I'm not watching these. I'm not glued to the TV every Saturday and Sunday watching these golf tournaments like I have been in the past. There are two factors in that. One, you've had a lot of long shots, a lot of players coming out of nowhere who are contending and winning a lot of these tournaments. And I have not, very few tournaments have I had a player in contention on Sunday so far. And I think the fields are watered down. It's great that we're going to get all the top players at the Masters this week, and we're going to see everybody competing on the same course again instead of the split in golf like we've had for the past year and a half. And I don't like the way it's going, but you got to get through some tough times sometimes to get to where the sport's got to be. And eventually, I think all this is going to come back together, and it's probably going to be better for it in the end. But think about it, Will. The players who took the money and ran to the Saudi tour, those guys, were vilified initially, and I didn't like it either. But it looks like they made a smart business decision, right? They're going to cash out. Eventually, I think they're going to be allowed a pathway back to the PGA Tour, and they're going to get the best of everything. Get their cake and eat it too. They're going to get their money. They're going to be allowed to come back and play. I know John Rahm's talked a lot about how he misses some of the big PGA Tour events. Well, he probably doesn't miss it as much when he sees the 400 or so million dollars that he signed for from Live. So those guys got their money. Eventually, they're going to make their way back. I don't like where golf is right now, but I think eventually we're going to get back to where the sport's going to be a lot stronger eventually, and all these guys are going to be allowed to play. What's the penalty for taking the money and going to Live? I think that's something you got to figure out because a lot of guys did turn down that money to stay on the PGA Tour, and I think they got stabbed in the back by PGA Tour leadership. So I don't know. A lot of that stuff, a lot of the hatred for the Live players, I think, is dissipated, and it's good to see everybody competing this week at Augusta. So we finally got a really strong field in golf, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, and do you think just a lot of the casual fans too? It's the fact that like, hey, Tiger and Phil, they've gotten older, and there hasn't been those guys to step up and replace them in terms of the, I don't know, personality, just people that golfers that people are drawn to. Scheffler's a great player, but I feel like a lot of people could be next to Scheffler at the grocery store and not even know it. Do you think that's part of it too?
Well, it's a part of it, but when you've got everybody together, I think the sport is still really strong with Scheffler and Rahm and Rory and all the guys at the top of the odds board. You still have enough star power. The problem with the PGA Tour right now is how many people do you think are going to be glued to the TV on Sunday when you got Akshay Bhatia and Denny McCarthy battling in a
Right.
playoff? Now that's not what's going to drive TV ratings. That's not what's going to drive the sport. And you need some of these big names to be in contention. And really, it's been few and far between on the PGA Tour in 2024, where you've had stars at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday, and that's why TV ratings are way down.
Yep, no doubt. Let's do some other things before we get you out of here. NFL draft. Anything you bet? Any idea which order these quarterbacks going?
Yeah, I do. Hey, by the way, before we get to that, what's on your card this week? Who have you played on the futures, or what do you have?
I mean, there was a Scheffler. I found Scheffler plus 750 a little while back, so I played that
Okay.
just because I thought that number would move. That's about it. I'll finalize today. I'll probably tell you on maybe Kepka. I had the Bear Chris Fleek on a couple days ago. He made a case for Zalatoris, who's played well at this course. So
Mhm.
I'll get involved in a couple of these and have some fun with it. I haven't hit golf outright in a long time. I really wasn't into golf betting until the pandemic, and then that was really the first sport back. And I had, I guess, beginner's luck where I just hit outright, every few weeks, and I was feeling good. Now it's been a long time, so it drives you crazy. Like I don't play a lot a week. Usually, I just pick one a week and go either first round leader and outright, something like that, just for fun. But it's been a while since I've hit one.
Well, 2024 has been a dry spell for me as well. I love golf betting. It seems like those futures wins come in bunches. It's kind of like
Right.
you're a streak shooter, right? It's almost like a streak shooter in basketball where, man, you can hit 4 or 5 of those in a span of like 3 months, or you can go 3 or 4 months without hitting anything. And that's kind of the way it's been for me in golf in 2024. As far as the NFL draft, Merrill Hodge is a guy who's got some really strong opinions on the quarterbacks. I'm not sure if you paid attention to what he says, but he is really trashed Caleb Williams. He's trashed Drake May in recent days. And you know what? The quarterback I like the most in this draft is Jaden Daniels from LSU. And if you look at his Pro Football Focus rating from last season, it was off the charts. I just think he's been coached really well by Brian Kelly. He's matured tremendously in the past couple of years. I think he could end up being a better NFL quarterback than Caleb Williams. And if I were the Bears, I would trade down, even if it's just to the 2 spot with Washington, because the Commanders would love to have Caleb Williams as a face of the franchise. Take Jaden Daniels too and get a haul for that trade, but that's not going to happen. Bears are going to take Caleb at number 1. I don't know if the Commanders are going to take Jaden Daniels at 2 or if they're going to go for Drake May, but it looks like right now we're going to have 4 quarterbacks off the board in the top 5. So you're going to have Williams, May, Daniels, and J.J. McCarthy is probably going to go in the top 5. I know that's hard for a lot of fans to understand because he's viewed a little bit more of a game manager at Michigan. But there are some NFL teams that love this guy. Vikings, Broncos being 2 of them. Giants might be another. I saw a prop up on McCarthy's draft position at 6.5, and kind of like that under because I think he is going to be a top 5 pick, and that 6.5 is not going to stick. How many quarterbacks are going to go in the first round? That prop is up at 4.5 at the Red Rock Sportsbook in Vegas. I think William Hill Caesars has a bunch of props up on the draft right now. You can play over 4.5 at minus around minus 250. I think the price might be up around $3 here in the past couple of days, but it looks like there's a pretty strong chance you're going to get 5 quarterbacks in the first round and maybe 6. I read a Pro Football Focus mock draft yesterday. It had 6 quarterbacks going in the top 15. So that's a price I think is going to be continue to inflate. It's going to be over on the 4.5 quarterbacks in the first round. I don't know what order it's going to be, but Jaden Daniels would be my number 2. He'd be before Drake May, and J.J. McCarthy is going to go a lot higher than people think. Do the Raiders go for a quarterback like Michael Penix at number 13? I know the Raiders covet Jaden Daniels and will love to trade up and get him, but you got to trade too much to move into the top 3 to get that quarterback from LSU. So I kind of doubt that's going to happen. The Broncos definitely go. Are they going to go for Bo Nix? Will they go for Michael Penix? Sean Payton's got to get a quarterback here, doesn't he? Is he going to go into the season with Jarrett Stidham as a starting QB? That seems doubtful.
Absolutely needs a quarterback. My question is, like, will the Patriots just automatically pick a quarterback no matter who's left at 3? Like, let's just say it goes Caleb and then it goes Dan and Daniels. Do they not care if it's May or Daniels at 3? Do they have a choice where, hey, my guy's not there at 3. I'm not going to just take whoever's left. Maybe they do, but they might just say, hey, I don't love this guy. I'm not going to reach. I'll trade down and get other stuff. So the draft, I think at 3 could get interesting where, it's probably going Caleb 1 and then another quarterback 2. My question is like, with the Patriots at 3, just automatically take whatever quarterback's left. Maybe they will.
That's a good question. Who loves Drake May? Do we know? Do the Commanders love him? Do they love Jaden Daniels? I think the Patriots would take Daniels at number 3 if he's there. Everything I've read, because I do read a couple Patriots beat writers, and it looks to me like if Daniels were there at 3, the Patriots would take him. If he's not, do you take Marvin Harrison Jr. or do you trade down? I could see the Patriots trading down because there are going to be so many teams desperate to trade up. I could see that happening. Patriots are also desperate for a quarterback as well. You're not going to go into this season with Jacoby Brissett as your starter, are you?
No, I mean, they have to get their quarterback. So Again, though, it comes down to how they feel about the third best guy, because it's not like they have their choice of these guys. It's that thing where, hey, we need a quarterback, we got to take one. But yeah, if you're lukewarm on the quarterback, you take one just because you need one. That can be tricky. So I don't know. Maybe they will. I would think that's the favorite. I mean, you can usually never go wrong betting against the quarterbacks to go higher than usual. So it's
Right.
probably going to go quarterback to start. And Minnesota's the other team too, where they traded up to get a second first round pick. So now they have I think 11 and 21, something like that, where they have enough ammo to maybe get in the top five and get whoever falls to, I don't know, 4 or 5, whether that's McCarthy, whether that's May. I think they'll probably come away with a quarterback too.
That's going to be a really intriguing thing to watch in this NFL draft too, is because the Vikings want to move up. They want J.J. McCarthy. I think the Patriots. I read a report last week that there are people within the Patriots front office who are really pushing hard for J.J. McCarthy. I don't know if they're profiling him as, hey, we got another Michigan quarterback. We got our next Tom Brady here, which is going to be a stretch. But is that what the Patriots are thinking? Could they take McCarthy at number 3? There have been picks at the top of this NFL draft where you fall off your chair when the pick is announced, right? Mitch Trubisky, number 2 to the Bears. Daniel Jones to the Giants in the top 10. I would not be stunned if the Patriots took J.J. McCarthy at number 3, especially after that report I read last week about their interest in McCarthy. So I think that's something you have to keep in mind as well. Drake May might be the quarterback who slips. May could go number 2 to the Commanders. He could slip further in the top 10, but the Patriots are going to have to make some sort of move if they don't love the quarterback who's there at 3, because the Broncos and the Vikings are going to be both desperate, I think, to move up. So right now, I would say even laying that price on over 4.5 quarterbacks in the first round is a good bet, because I believe that price is going to go up. You've seen a very competitive market here with a lot of teams in need of a quarterback. And hey, Michael Penix has had some good workouts. I know he's impressed teams. Bo Nix, there's a lot of tape on Nix that scouts love. So we're going to see 6 quarterbacks in the top 15. I think it's a realistic chance. But the Patriots, you're right, at number 3, that's where things get really interesting.
And betting the draft has been harder out in Vegas. Do you have a lot of bets? Is there less available?
Oh, there's no doubt about it, because, say 3 years ago, for example, there was a lot on the board on the NFL draft. There were a lot of good numbers you could pick off. And, you know, many of us fared very well on the draft there for a span of like 2 or 3 years. And now the bookmakers have been beating on this thing. And so many of these guys are gun shy to put stuff up. Chuck Esposito of Red Rock loves the draft. He puts a bunch up. William Hill Caesars that's a book that's not been shy to put up draft props. And you can find a few, but other than those 2 books, good luck trying to find NFL draft props in Vegas. It was very difficult to find. Even when the draft was in Vegas, it was hard to find props up before that last week before the draft. And DraftKings does a very good job of putting up a lot of stuff too. But in Nevada, we don't have access to that, and it's not as good a betting event as it was in the past. But I think with these quarterback props, that's going to drive a lot of action on this draft.
Last one. Any takeaways
Uh-huh.
here from baseball? Pitchers getting hurt, Yankees playing well. Take it whatever direction you want to go.
Well, Yankees off to a really good start. You just wonder how long this pitching staff can go without Garrett Cole and when he's going to be available. I like some things I've seen from the Yankees. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You get out to a great start, and a lot of people get optimistic, but at what point's Garrett Cole going to be able to make a comeback, and can the pitching staff hold up, without that ace, that anchor in the rotation? I think the Braves got to be really, really concerned. Spencer Strider's got UCL damage in his elbow, and he could miss a lot of time. Well, there's a chance we might not see Spencer Strider again this season, right?
Oh, I think
So,
that's the favorite. I think that's the overwhelming favorite.
so that's a big concern. As far as that, I have not been betting a lot of baseball so far. I've been consumed by college hoops and the Masters and the NFL draft, but I'm trying to get into baseball a little bit more. I know that's your bread and butter every day right now.
Yeah, and as far as like futures, man, it's hard with the with the new playoff format to bet futures, because there's all these extra rounds. These teams that have buys have to sit for a while. It's just they've really, with the extra teams, made it a lot like, I would say, March Madness, but March Madness was pretty predictable this year. But they've made it that sort of tournament where it's, or that sort of playoff where it's so unpredictable. It's And last year, Texas and Arizona, I don't think anybody really thought those were the two best teams. Neither
No.
team won their division. So I don't know. In betting, here's the thing with the pitcher injuries. I've been saying, man, if you're going to get involved with Cy Young, unless you're getting 50 to 1 or 100 to 1, or unless you're going to wait till June or July, these pitchers get hurt too much. I mean, I know Zach Wheeler's like 4 to 1 or something. Some of these guys 6 to 1, 8 to 1. I don't know how
Mhm.
you bet it this early in the season with all these injuries. I mean, it's April, I mean, April 9th, 10th here, where I mean, Framber Valdez is hurt now. There was a rash of guys on Monday that got hurt. It's crazy how often they get hurt. I think they throw so hard, and they throw hard from a young age, and they get to the majors and they're shot.
Yeah, that's why I did not jump in on any baseball futures this year, which is the first time in a long time I didn't do it. And I agree with what you said. It feels like there's more of a random element to the postseason, the way it's set up now. If you think about last year, the Dodgers were the most dominant team in baseball for the last 2 months, right? They were outstanding in August and September. They get into October and they get bounced out of the playoffs right away, get blown out by the D-backs. How do you predict that? You know, that's a D-backs team that the Dodgers owned during the regular season. They get to the playoffs and they get blown out. And I think it makes it very difficult to bet some of these futures unless you find a price on a team where you feel like maybe the betting market's sleeping on that team a little bit. I thought a couple of years ago you had a great call on the Baltimore Orioles. You were ahead of the curve on the Orioles being a team on the rise. If you see something like that, that's worth playing. But man, it's still so hard to cash these baseball futures. I mean, it's I did not see any signs of the Arizona Diamondbacks being a World Series team. You know, at some point late in the regular season last year, and then they get there, and that's kind of things like that make me shy away from betting the baseball futures. Plus the pitcher injuries. You know, you bet the Yankees to win the American League East, and before you even get to opening day, Garrett Cole's out for 2 months. You know, so obviously you don't like that futures bet as much as when you made it. And all it takes is one or two big injuries like that to shoot your futures bet down. How about those people who were running to the window last year to bet the Jets to win the Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers blows out his Achilles 3 plays into the first game of the season? That's why I think a lot of times you always got to, when you make a futures bet, you always got to think about what's the worst case scenario. How could I lose this bet? You know, what injury, what things could happen, and when you do that, I think you shy away from futures a little bit more. Hey, in college basketball, I'll give you an example. I bet a bunch of futures, more than I wanted to this year. I had teams like North Carolina, Kentucky, on and on. And I like the numbers I got on those teams, around 30 to 1. Had no chance. Well, the last futures bet I made, I lost 7 futures bets in college basketball. The last one I made was the first week of January. I bet UConn at 14 to 1 because I said, you know what? I think UConn might be the best team. I got to cover myself here in case all these others blow up. I better bet UConn as an insurance policy. And guess what? That paid off. They rolled through the tournament again. And I bet more futures in college hoops than I do in any other sport. But baseball, I really don't have a whole lot of interest in futures. One thing you and I talked about on that Friday night VSiN show was I did like the Mets under their win total quite a bit this year, but I ended up not even making that bet.
Yeah, and it comes down to, hey, you're tying up your money for a long time, even if your bet wins,
Right.
especially if these awards, I mean, they don't give out these awards till Thanksgiving. It's a long season to have your bankroll tied up. But Matt, I appreciate it, man. This was fun. I got to have you on again down the road here. Let everyone know where they can find your stuff.
Well, you can find us at vsin.com. You can also find us on VSiN tonight every weeknight. And Will Hill, you're my co-host on Friday nights. I encourage everybody to watch that show because we got 3 hours. We cover a lot of ground. We'll be talking a lot of baseball and definitely some golf. Looking forward to the Masters, man. Hopefully it takes a turn for the better for us in golf betting this week.
Matt, appreciate you coming on. Thanks.
Hey, you bet. Thanks.
All right, that'll do it. Thank you to Matt Youmans. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back Friday, talk a little baseball, maybe start to get ready for the NBA playoffs as that season winds down. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. See you Friday.